If you've been following the complicated family trees of the Targaryens, then you'll happen to spot a few familiar names in today's video. One played by the massively talented Paddy Considine, who blew us all away in the recent episodes of the House of the Dragon. So let's first go through some of the king's best moments, and how the character happened to become one of the underdogs of the entire series. Firstly, Paddy Considine carries the House of the Dragons on his shoulders. As the series creator, George.R.R. was shown rough drafts of House of the Dragon's initial 9 episodes before many of the special effects and stuff were added. He concluded that the show had made the ruler Viserys Targaryen one of his favorite characters, even though he was made a forgettable one in the books by him. The writer went on to say that he wished he had thought of some of the changes that the show had made, as they added so much depth to the entire universe. That's very high praise coming from the man himself, and in the first episodes we clearly got to understand what he was talking about. Viserys, when I wrote Fire and Blood, was not a character who engaged me. I kind of liked him, but what Considine has done has made him more of a tragic figure and less of an amiable guy, Martin said in an interview. He repeated it again on his own blog, saying he was tremendously dazzled by the show's rendition of Viserys, and Considine had given the person an unfortunate grandness that the books never even touched. The Viserys initially created by Martin is nothing compared to what we see on screen, and could even be looked at as just the bare foundations of the character. With so much development, and with the help of Considine's vicious acting chops, we get to see what it means when a good person doesn't become a good ruler. He isn't an evil person like Joffrey or merciless like Cersei, but he ends up doing as much damage because of his inability to take command. The show has taken that framework of the person and added a surprising measure of wisdom, turning a forgettable character into one we look forward to seeing on the screen the most. Next, let's talk about how he had us in tears in episode 2. Viserys always tries to please people and ends up making the wrong decisions, yet we still have a soft spot for him because of a couple of scenes. In episode 2, he settles on marrying Alicent Hightower rather than the 12-year-old Laena Velaryon, even though politically and strategically it would have made more sense, but he rejects his counsel and makes the dumber choice. But we understand how he feels. Alicent gives the ruler a gift. On this fact alone, it wouldn't seem like a big deal, but if you kept watching, you would know how Considine handled this scene and turned it into one where we actually shed tears. Earlier, he broke one of his mythical beast sculptures from his model of the city of Old Valyria, and he seemed quite sad after it, as he's shown to be a bit of a geek, but Alicent has had it fixed. This is an extremely nice thought, Alicent. Extremely kind, Viserys says. The actor showed such vulnerability, and you can tell that deep down he's just an extremely lonely man and has surrendered to his sorrow after the death of his wife. Although he did make the decision to perform a C-section on her during labor against her choice, he still carries the guilt and regrets from that in every scene. One little token of goodwill from Alicent towards a hobby of his, and he practically breaks down into tears. It's incredibly stirring and sad. He winds up wedding Alicent rather than Laena, and this ended up being one of the scenes where we got to see Considine go above and beyond. Finally, Viserys takes a drunken stand. In episode 3, the king is shown to drink a bit too much and falls down in his cups, according to the throne's verse. He sits and drinks alone while the party goes on around him, but because he's absolutely plastered, his inhibitions melt away and he stops caring about what other people think, and we finally get to see a glimpse of the formidable king. He names Rhaenyra his main successor, and when the hand of the king, his most trusted advisor, tries to convince him to wed his daughter to the 2-year-old Aegon, Viserys just drunkenly laughs in his face. We kind of thought that the man should get drunk more often because he seems so much more self-assured and less anxious, and it worked out for him. The scene closes with him holding his wife Alicent close to him, and Viserys revealed a dream he had of a male heir of his taking over the iconic Iron Throne, but he got too obsessed with it, and in an anguished voice, he says his fixation with the fantasy killed Rhaenyra's mom. While still intoxicated, he starts doubting himself whether he should have named his daughter as successor, as he knows none of the lords of the realm would agree. But by morning, he has grown a spine and appears determined on his decision. Considine was made such a layered and complex person. Someone who wasn't even on the radar of R.R. Martin has now become one of the intense and delicate characters in the show. In the first act, Viserys is the focal person carrying the story with his tragedy. He isn't simply a pathetic lord as originally composed. He's a man battling with profound trouble, responsibility, and lament, with the frantic depression that comes from losing the one individual who was really on his side. It is a hypnotizing performance in every single aspect. In other related news, firstly, has Game of Thrones had a #MeToo moment? By the third episode of the original GOT series, we'd gotten an up-close and unwilling look at a whole generation of Lannisters in their birthday suits, the explicit and disturbing preparations of the infamous wedding of Daenerys and Drogo, and countless other crazy instances of naked limbs flying on the screen. So how come we've only got to see a brief nude scene in the first episode of Ruler Demons Behind and Massaria? Perhaps it is because audiences have grown tired of it, as when the original show came out, the absurd and graphic subjects of incest, rape, and assault made it stand out for adult viewers, but now it feels as though every show has tried to copy the same thing just for the shock value on screen. It didn't help that the nudity was mostly just female and almost 100% unwarranted, like with the scenes of Littlefinger plotting his schemes in his brothel with stripped extras being made to run around on set. The development of the #MeToo movement woke a lot of people up to the reality, which was that the show wasn't daring for adding all of that. It was just tasteless and insensitive. So will House of the Dragon tone it down and perhaps try to include more inclusive scenes if needed, and avoid taking advantage of its cast and distancing its watchers as the original did? That's exactly what it looks like has been done, although some will argue that this decision will lose a lot of the fan base. It's worth asking if that's really the fan base we all want to be associated with. Moving on to the crab feeder Easter egg that left us all confused. In episode 3, we see Kragas Drahar and his armed forces annihilated, and afterward, Daemon announces himself Lord of the Stepstones. Fans, however, noted something familiar about Crab Feeder and his mask, which was a human-bird hybrid thing, completely gold. This was confirmed to be a direct reference to the Sons of the Harpy from Game of Thrones from seasons 5 and 6. But as fans thought there could be some sort of correlation, there was no kind of hint from George.R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire that shows that the two are in any way related, and that the association has no earlier history in Westeros. We can't be sure whether the Sons of the Harpy masks were simply a shameless little GOT reference just to mess with our heads, or if it actually will mean something, as we have known that the directors don't always follow the script written by Martin to the exact letter. Finishing off with viewership declines for House of the Dragon. Episode 3, named Second of His Name, was watched by 2.5 million viewers across its 4 airings on HBO on Sunday. That's 1 million fewer watchers than Episode 2. It's critical to take note that this complete count only measures the people who got the episode on the HBO channel itself, as HBO Max didn't share their streaming information for Episode 3 after the first 2. That's what Nielsen's information shows. The Throne Show's viewership bounced from 3.2 million with Episode 1 to 3.5 million to Episode 2, a 9.4% expansion, before the current week's 28.6% decline. That's a wrap for this video, and thanks for watching. What did you think of Considine's acting and what's going to happen to the tragic character? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.